Welcome, friends of the Crawford, to another CorkAbout, and we're here in Grattan Street. And this time, I'm delighted to be able to say I've got the artist. So it's a Meet the Artist slot, and this is Peter Martin, whose work we were looking at a few weeks ago. And this is Lovebird. So here's Peter Martin.
Hi Michelle, lovely to be here.
We're delighted to have you here. Peter is really super for giving us his time today because he's actually on his day off. He is a art teacher in the Christian Brothers School, where I believe you went to school yourself.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I went to school there many moons ago. Yeah.
And myself and Bernadette were just chatting about that relationship with your art teacher. When you were growing up, because the importance of, getting the confidence in your own work and things. What's it like going back as a teacher now for you, Peter, having been in the school yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting going back, looking at things from a different perspective. Like I'm luckily enough that the art teacher that I had, Neil Lucy, when I was in school, is still there. So it's interesting to see be on the other side and be kind of teaching on the same kind of team as him. That is quite interesting. And also, yeah, I mean, like it's an incredibly rewarding job to be able to go in and actually teach people every day and kind of see work being created every day. And like, to avoid the cliche, you do actually get like a real buzz when you see a student progress from like early days in first year and kind of like moving through the years and kind of picking up small things and showing interest and stuff. Yeah, it's incredible. I think it's kind of a responsibility to kind of pass on certain ideas and certain techniques and kind of any kind of expertise that you have. I think needs to be kind of spread as much as possible, you know.
Yeah, because we were looking at that even from the sculptor Seamus Murphy and his relationship with his former teacher and how it influenced an awful lot of where he went through later in life. And I think looking at your work with murals, these are large-scale murals here. I mean, as an art student of yours, to be able to see your own teacher's work very proudly on display in your home city, that's quite something else. Do your students get any involvement, or have you thought about involving them in the actual process of your work at the moment?
Yeah, well, I would open up the process to some of them, like in class and stuff like that. I think sometimes you do I try to keep a certain separation from it to a certain extent, because you still are their teacher and you kind of still kind of want to have that identity. But yeah, definitely, like I would kind of I've engaged like senior students in the school now, would have kind of gone around and seen all the murals and would kind of see the process behind it. And I think it's really important for students to see, although it's not many people, like you can produce art in a professional sense. And I think there's a subconscious thing that kind of goes on in Ireland in particular, that like, oh yeah, sure, we'll do art there in second year, third year, and then no matter, like, there's no future in it, and there's no future in it, there's no jobs in it, and we all know that there is it's a struggle to make money solely from being an artist. But I think there's a lot to be said about doing art just for the creative process behind it, and how that kind of feeds into kind of other aspects of life. So I think but definitely seeing murals out on the street that your teacher might have produced, I would hope would inspire some of them, definitely, and show them that like you can actually make work and make kind of, I suppose, large scale work, and that there's a career, that there can be a career from it, I suppose, is what I'm trying to get at, you know.
Yeah, we were just even talking about the fact that murals themselves, and the benefit of murals themselves, in that you don't have the boundaries of the doors to galleries, as opposed to work that's only displayed in galleries. Marketing would always have said getting people in the door by putting it out on the streets where people just naturally come upon it. You've got that wonderful accessibility to everybody in the community. So another angle that we were talking about when we were thinking of murals is the site-specific aspect of them. So in this case, we're looking at the connection between Terence McSweeney and another mural you have across the road, which is of the burning of Cork. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that nature of it, the site-specific aspect of a mural?
Yeah, I'd say like the one that's just behind us is probably the best example of it. Because of the fact, like it's probably like out of all the murals I've ever done, it's definitely it's the location it's based in reflects in the artwork completely. So it's Terence McSweeney and his wife Muriel on their wedding day. So initially the idea was actually just to do an image of Terence McSweeney on a bike, just like this posed image that we found of Terence McSweeney on a bike. And then when we kind of thought about it a bit more, actually what had happened was there was controversy might be the wrong word. There was a decision made not to go ahead with a commemorative sculpture on Patrick Street of Terence McSweeney, Tomas McCurtain, and Michael Collins. This sculpture that was meant to go ahead, and it was cut. The idea was cut down by a councillor in City Hall. Because of the fact that women weren't being represented in kind of commemorative artwork around the War of Independence. And I was thinking, yeah, like that's so true, you know. But I was still doing a mural of Terence McSweeney. So then I kind of got the idea of the fact that that building is the registry office, and that like obviously it's a place that people come all the time and get married, and it's also kind of an area that like there's kind of no backdrop for them, and like a lot of people have like wedding days. There was a big thought put into this actually for a long time, but there was a lot of wedding days. People come in here, they don't even have an opportunity around here to take a photo. They might go into the park over there. So it just kind of worked. And then like the more like I'd have a massive interest in that aspect of Irish history anyway. And then when I kind of started thinking about Muriel McSweeney and kind of her involvement in the whole process, and when he was on hunger strike, her going over to like support him through like the 72 days or something, I think 74. And like it was like the part she paid the part she played, and the, I suppose, lack of thanks and like appreciation that she got, and her like tragic aspects of her life that were so tragic afterwards. I just thought it kind of had to be commemorated, and I thought this was like a very like beautiful way of like celebrating their love, as opposed to celebrating, you're kind of celebrating him as a human being. And I suppose like the whole idea of like Irish freedom was that it was for so people could live their lives that they wanted to live it. And I think that's kind of an example of it, because they did get married while he was over, under house arrest over in England. She travelled over. They snuck the Irish Volunteers uniform over with them. And it's just like I just thought it was just an amazing story, and it had to be commemorated. And then the background of it then is actually based on the mosaic floor in the Honan Chapel. And then the Honan Chapel is obviously like is a Celtic revival church, and was like, I suppose like it's the Celtic revival is all part of this. Like there's pictures of Muriel Murphy wearing her Celtic revival dresses, and around the time, like I remember researching up in Dublin in UCD years ago around commemorative history, and looking at like ads and stuff that were on the papers around the time of the Rising and around the time of the War of Independence, where people were like advertising kind of Celtic revival dresses, Celtic instruments, kind of Celtic craft and stuff like that. So I think that the Crawford or the Honan Chapel was such like a hub of like Irish cultural kind of revitalization. So that's kind of the background of it. And then obviously the two birds, like the geese up there, like, and that's the name of the piece is Lovebird. So that it kind of all came together. And then the piece across the road is the Burnie of Cork, so it's a lot more of a simple image. That was commissioned by the Middle Parish as well. Both were commissioned by the Middle Parish from George Patterson inside there has like organised both these murals, and there's actually a third one hopefully coming soon, kind of. So hopefully there'll be kind of like a trilogy of commemorative murals. But the Burnie of Cork one, I suppose, is different, because with the Burnie of Cork one, we kind of just wanted to say like, this is the scale of what, it's to scale pretty much. So like this is the scale of like what the city looked like 100 years ago. And also it was happening during COVID lockdowns as well. So it was very much like we rose from a city being burnt to the ground. We're very resilient, like human beings are very resilient, so that was the message of that piece.